Queen Zixandra stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, looking down at the great city below. The Valthari Empire stretched across 1,000 worlds, and she ruled them all. Her people were tall and graceful, with silver skin that glowed softly in the light. They lived for thousands of years and could move things with their minds. They were proud of their power, and their advanced technology. Today was different. Today she would meet the human who would become her husband. The marriage was not her choice. The human colonies had been causing problems for months. Their ships appeared in Valthari space without permission. Their traders asked too many questions about military bases. Some of her advisors wanted to destroy Earth before the humans became a real threat. But war was expensive. Marriage was cheaper. The humans had offered one of their people as a husband for their queen. This would make the humans part of the empire and solve the problem without bloodshed. Zixandra had never seen a human before. She had read reports about them. They were small and weak. They lived for less than 100 years. They had no special powers. They seemed harmless enough that the great doors to the throne room opened. Ambassador Velkith walked in first. He was old, even for a Velthari, and his silver skin had darkened with age. Behind him walked the human. Zixandra tried not to show her surprise. The human was smaller than she expected. He barely reached her shoulder. His skin was a warm brown color, and his hair was black. He wore simple clothes that looked strange next to the flowing robes of her people. "Your Majesty," Ambassador Velketh said with a deep bow, "may I present Marcus Chun of Earth. He comes to fulfill the marriage contract between our peoples." The human stepped forward and bowed. It was not perfect, but he had clearly practiced. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice was quiet and calm. "I am honored to meet you." Zixandra studied him carefully. He did not seem afraid, which was unusual. Most visitors to her court showed fear or at least nervousness. This human just looked curious, like he was trying to memorize everything he saw. "Welcome to my court, Marcus Chun," she said. "I hope your journey was not too difficult." "It was fascinating," Marcus replied. "I have never seen technology like your ships. The way they move through space is beautiful." Several of her courtiers exchanged glances. They were not used to aliens commenting on their technology with genuine interest instead of fear. "You seem very calm for someone so far from home," Zixandra said. Marcus smiled. "Earth taught me that new experiences are gifts, even when they are scary. Besides, I have read much about your people. Your art and poetry are famous throughout human space." This was another surprise. Most aliens who came to her court talked only about trade deals or military agreements. They did not mention art. The wedding ceremony was held 3 days later. It was a simple affair by Velthari standards. Marcus wore traditional robes that made him look even smaller. He repeated the ancient words without mistakes. His pronunciation was not perfect, but he had clearly worked hard to learn them. Zixandra found herself watching him during the ceremony. He seemed genuinely interested in the traditions. When the sacred flames were lit, he watched with wonder instead of boredom. When the musicians played the marriage songs, he listened carefully to every note. After the ceremony, there was a great feast. Marcus sat beside her at the high table. Many of the guests stared at him like he was some kind of strange animal. He did not seem to notice or care. "The food is incredible," he told her. "We have nothing like this on Earth." "You are not what I expected," Zixandra said. "What did you expect?" "Someone more frightened. Most aliens find our court overwhelming." Marcus looked around the great hall. Hundreds of Velthari nobles filled the space. Their silver skin glowed in the light from floating crystals. Some were using their mind powers to make small objects dance in the air for entertainment. "It is overwhelming," Marcus agreed. "But overwhelming can be beautiful too." Your people have created something amazing here. You speak strangely for a political hostage. Marcus turned to look at her directly. His eyes were dark brown, and they seemed very serious. Is that what I am? A hostage? Zixandra felt uncomfortable under his gaze. What else would you call it? A bridge, Marcus said simply. Between your people and mine. The weeks that followed fell into a routine. Marcus was given rooms in the palace's east wing. He was assigned guards, officially for his protection. Everyone knew they were really there to watch him, but Marcus did not seem to mind. He spent his days exploring the palace and its gardens. He asked endless questions about everything he saw. How did the floating gardens work? Why were the walls made of crystal instead of metal? What did the symbols carved above doorways mean? The palace staff found him strange, but harmless. He was always polite. He thanked the servants for their work. He learned their names and asked about their families. This was very unusual behavior for someone of royal rank. Zixandra began spending time with him in the evenings. At first, it was duty. A queen should know her husband, even if the marriage was only for politics. But she found their conversations interesting. Marcus asked questions that no one else did. He wanted to know about Velthari philosophy and religion. He asked about their poetry and their music. He seemed to genuinely want to understand her people, not just their technology or military power. Why do your people live so long? He asked one evening as they walked through the moon garden. It is our nature, Zixandra replied. Why do your people live such short lives? Maybe because we have to make every moment count, Marcus said. When you only have 70 or 80 years, you cannot waste time on small hatreds or old fears. Is that why humans seem so intense? Marcus laughed. It was a warm sound that echoed off the crystal walls. I suppose we must seem that way to you. We do everything quickly because we have to. Zixandra found herself smiling. She had not expected to like her human husband. She had certainly not expected to find him interesting. But Marcus Chen was proving to be full of surprises. She had no idea how many surprises were still coming. 3 months had passed since the wedding. Marcus had become a familiar sight in the palace halls. The guards no longer stared at him with suspicion. The servants had grown used to his strange human habits. Even some of the nobles had stopped treating him like a curiosity. But Guard Captain Dexmar was beginning to notice odd things. It started small. During the long ceremonial duties that could last 8 or 10 hours, most people grew tired. Even Velthari guards, trained for endurance, would shift their weight or stretch their muscles. But the human never seemed uncomfortable. He stood perfectly still for hours, never showing any sign of fatigue. Dexmar mentioned it to his second-in-command, Guard Lieutenant Yulshan. Have you watched the Queen's husband during ceremonies? The human? Sometimes. Why? He never gets tired. I have seen him stand motionless for 12 hours straight. Yulshan shrugged. Maybe humans are more patient than we thought. But Dexmar was not convinced. He began watching more carefully. The palace was enormous, with corridors that twisted and turned in complex patterns. Most visitors got lost constantly. Even some nobles who had lived there for years still took wrong turns. But Marcus had learned the layout perfectly after just a few days. More strange still, Marcus seemed to know where he was going, even in parts of the palace he had never visited. Last week, Dexmar had seen him walk directly to the archive vaults without hesitation. Those vaults were hidden deep underground, behind unmarked doors. How had he known where to find them? Dr. Nex Villa, the royal physician, was having her own puzzling experiences with the human. When Marcus first arrived, she had performed the standard medical examinations required for all palace residents. The results had been unusual. His bone density is impossible, she told her assistant. According to these readings, his skeleton should be able to withstand impacts that would shatter Volthari bones. Perhaps human bones are naturally stronger. That is not what the scientific databases say. Every report describes humans as physically weak. But look at these muscle fiber readings. The assistant studied the data. This suggests incredible strength. But he looks so normal. Exactly. Nothing about his external appearance matches his internal structure. It's like his body has been modified somehow. Meanwhile, Zixandra was making her own observations. She had always been good at reading people, even aliens. It was a necessary skill for ruling an empire. But Marcus remained a mystery. He was always considerate, always thoughtful. He brought her small gifts, unusual flowers from the garden, interesting books from the library, pieces of art that caught his attention. But sometimes, she caught him watching her with an intensity that seemed almost protective. Yesterday, during a formal dinner, Ambassador Kreltak from the Zanari Federation had made some insulting comments about human intelligence. Zixandra had seen Marcus's hands tighten slightly on his eating utensils. For just a moment, his calm expression had changed to something much more dangerous. You seem very well informed about galactic politics for someone from such a young species, she said to him one evening. They were in her private study, reading. Marcus had developed a habit of spending time there after dinner. He was working his way through texts on Volthari history and philosophy. Earth values education, Marcus replied, without looking up from his book. We believe it is important to understand our neighbors. Your neighbors live many light years away. Space is smaller than it used to be. Zixandra set down her own book. Marcus, may I ask you something personal? Of course. What did you do on Earth before you came here? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I served my people in various ways. That is not really an answer. I was a teacher, and sometimes a protector. A protector? What did you protect them from? The unknown, Marcus said simply. There are many dangers in space. My people wanted to be ready for them. Before Zixandra could ask more questions, her communication device chimed with an urgent message. She activated the holographic display, and Admiral Dexter's image appeared. Your Majesty, I apologize for interrupting your evening. We have received disturbing reports from the Outer Rim territories. What kind of reports? 3 more colonies have gone silent, just like the others. No distress calls, no wreckage, nothing. They simply disappeared. Zixandra felt a chill run down her spine. For months, colonies on the edge of the Empire had been vanishing. Not destroyed, vanished. No signs of battle, no evidence of what had happened. Entire worlds with millions of inhabitants were simply empty when patrol ships arrived. How many does that make? She asked. 17 colonies in the past 6 months, Your Majesty. Whatever is doing this is moving closer to our core worlds. Marcus had put down his book and was listening carefully. Have your scouts found any clues at all? He asked. Admiral Dexter looked surprised. Humans did not usually speak during military briefings, but Zixandra gestured for him to answer. Strange readings mostly. Unusual energy signatures, and the Admiral hesitated. And what? Bite marks, Your Majesty. On metal structures. Something with very large, very sharp teeth has been feeding on our buildings. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Can you describe the bite patterns? Curved, overlapping marks. Multiple rows of teeth. Our scientists believe they come from some kind of biological entity, but the size would have to be enormous. After the Admiral signed off, the study fell into silence. Zixandra stared at the spot where the hologram had been, trying to process what she had heard. You seem very interested in military matters for a teacher, she said to Marcus. On Earth. Teachers and protectors often work together, Marcus replied. Knowledge and defense go hand in hand. Is that why you asked about bite patterns? Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, more serious. Your Majesty, has your empire ever encountered a species that views all other life as food? The question sent ice through her veins. What do you mean? Some species see other intelligent beings not as equals or even enemies, but as resources to consume. They do not negotiate or seek territory. They only hunger. How would you know about such things? Marcus looked directly at her. Because Earth has met them before. That night, Zixandra lay awake thinking about her husband's words. Earth had met them before. What did that mean? How could a young species like humanity have experience with threats that her ancient empire had never seen? The next morning brought more disturbing news. Another colony had vanished, this one much closer to the capital world, and a patrol ship that discovered. It had reported something new, strange organic ships, detected at the edge of the system before they fled into hyperspace. Ships that looked like they were grown instead of built. Ships that had teeth. Zixandra began to wonder if her quiet, thoughtful human husband might know more about their mysterious enemy than anyone realized. And she began to suspect that Marcus Chen was not quite as harmless as he appeared. The way he had asked about bite patterns suggested experience. The way he talked about species that saw others as food suggested knowledge. And the way he sometimes watched her, like he was calculating distances and threats, suggested training. That what kind of teacher needed that sort of training? And what kind of protector was Earth sending to other worlds, disguised as a diplomat? She was beginning to think she had married someone much more dangerous than anyone knew. The alarm sirens began screaming at dawn. Zixandra jolted awake in her chambers as red warning lights flashed across the walls. The emergency communication system activated automatically, filling the room with Admiral Dexter's urgent voice. Your Majesty, we have multiple hostile contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Unknown ship configurations approaching the homeworld. All defensive fleets are scrambling to intercept. Zixandra leaped from her bed and rushed to the window. In the distance, she could see the first orbital defense platforms opening fire. Bright lines of energy weapons cut through the sky, but their targets were unlike anything she had ever seen. The enemy ships looked alive. They were not built from metal and crystal like Velthari vessels. Instead, they seemed to be grown, like massive insects with shells that gleamed whitely in the sunlight. They moved through space with an organic flowing motion that made her stomach turn. Marcus, she called, suddenly remembering her husband. His chambers were connected to hers, but when she rushed through the doorway, she found them empty. Where was he? The communication system crackled again. Your Majesty, the outer defense grid has been breached. Enemy forces are landing in the capital city. Palace security protocols are now in effect. Zixandra quickly dressed in her ceremonial armor and grabbed her energy sword. As queen, she had trained for this day, though she had never expected it to come. The Velthari Empire had been strong for thousands of years. Who would dare attack their homeworld directly? She found her answer when she reached the palace's command center. The main screen showed images from the city below, and what she saw made her blood freeze. The creatures pouring from the organic ships were nightmares made real. They stood 8 feet tall on 4 powerful legs, with bodies covered in black chitinous armor. Their heads were elongated, filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Multiple arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. And their eyes showed no intelligence, only hunger. Devourers, she whispered, remembering the old stories her grandmother had told her. Legends about monsters from the dark spaces between galaxies, creatures that consumed everything in their path. Your Majesty, Guard Captain Dexmar appeared at her side. "We must get you to the secure bunkers immediately. These creatures are overwhelming our defenses." "How many?" "Thousands, Your Majesty." "Maybe more. Our weapons are having limited effect. Their armor seems to absorb most energy attacks." On the screens, Zixandra watched her proud soldiers fighting desperately against the swarm. The Valthari were skilled warriors, but they had never faced anything like this. The Devourers moved with terrifying speed and seemed to feel no pain. Even when severely wounded, they continued attacking until they were completely destroyed. "Where is my husband?" she asked suddenly. "The human? I thought he was with you." "He was not in his chambers." Dexmar looked confused. "Perhaps he is already in the bunkers." That would be the sensible place for a civilian. But Zixandra had a feeling Marcus was not hiding in a bunker. Something about his behavior these past months suggested he was not the type to hide when there was danger. "Your Majesty, we must go now," Dexmar insisted. "The creatures have broken through the palace's outer defenses." As if summoned by his words, they heard the sound of something massive smashing through crystal walls nearby. Inhuman roars echoed through the corridors. Along with the screams of palace staff, Zixandra drew her energy sword as a group of royal guards formed a protective circle around her. They began moving toward the secure levels. But the sounds of battle grew closer with each step. They had almost reached the reinforced doors when the first Devourer burst through the wall ahead of them. God, it was even more terrifying up close. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, its black armor gleamed with moisture from its recent feeding. Multiple rows of teeth filled a mouth that seemed designed only for tearing flesh. Its 6 arms ended in claws that were already stained with blood. The creature's head turned toward them, and Zixandra felt its hungry gaze fix on her. She could see its nostrils flaring as it scented prey. "Protect the queen!" Dexmar shouted. The royal guards opened fire with their energy weapons. The beams struck the Devourer's armor and scattered harmlessly. The creature barely seemed to notice as it charged forward. Dexmar met its first attack with his own sword, a blade of pure energy that could cut through almost any material. But when it struck the creature's claw, sparks flew and the energy blade flickered. The Devourer's natural weapons were somehow resistant to their technology. More guards joined the fight, but the creature was incredibly fast. It struck with all 6 arms at once, its claws finding gaps in their armor. 2 guards went down immediately, their screams cut short. Zixandra raised her own weapon, preparing to fight and die as a queen should. But before she could strike, she heard a familiar voice. "Your Majesty, please step back." She turned to see Marcus approaching from behind them. He was not running toward the bunkers like she expected. Instead, he was walking calmly toward the battle, completely unarmed. "Marcus, get out of here!" she shouted. "You cannot fight that thing." Marcus glanced at her, and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Not fear or panic, but a cold calculation that seemed almost predatory. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "with your permission, I would like to help." "Help? You are not even armed." "I do not need weapons for this." Before Zixandra could protest, Marcus stepped past the remaining guards. The Devourer had just torn through Dexmar's armor and was preparing to feed when it noticed the approaching human. The creature turned toward Marcus and let out a roar that shook the crystal walls. It seemed confused by this small, defenseless prey that walked toward it instead of running away. Marcus stopped about 10 feet from the monster. He looked so small next to its massive form. So fragile. Zixandra wanted to scream at him to run, but something about his posture stopped her. "You know," Marcus said conversationally, as if he was discussing the weather, "your species made a mistake when you decided to come here." The Devourer tilted its head, apparently puzzled by the human's calm behavior. It had been designed to inspire terror, But this small creature showed no fear at all. "You see," Marcus continued, rolling up his sleeves, "my people have been preparing for something like you for a very long time. And we have learned that the best way to deal with monsters." Marcus's stance shifted slightly. The change was subtle, but suddenly he no longer looked like a harmless diplomat. His body coiled like a spring ready to release, is to become something worse. What happened next would be burned into Zixandra's memory forever. Marcus moved faster than anything she had ever seen. One moment he was standing calmly in front of the creature. The next, he was behind it, and one of the Devourer's arms was lying on the floor, severed cleanly at the joint. The creature spun around, roaring in pain and rage, but Marcus was already moving again. This time, he went low, striking at the creature's legs with precision that seemed impossible. She heard the sound of chitin cracking. The Devourer fell to one knee, its black blood pooling on the crystal floor. It lashed out desperately with its remaining arms, but Marcus flowed around the attacks like water. Every movement was perfectly controlled, perfectly timed. "Marcus?" Zixandra whispered. He glanced back at her for just a moment, and she saw that his calm brown eyes had become something much more dangerous. "I am sorry, Your Majesty. There are things about my people that the galaxy does not yet understand." The Devourer made one final desperate lunge, its massive jaws opening to bite the human in half. Marcus stepped forward to meet it, his hands moving faster than she could follow. When the dust settled, the creature lay dead at his feet. Its head had been separated from its body with surgical precision, accomplished somehow with bare hands. Marcus stood over the corpse, breathing calmly. His clothes were torn, but he showed no signs of injury. He looked down at the dead monster with an expression of professional satisfaction. "One down," he said quietly. Then he looked up at the shocked faces around him. "But there will be many more coming. Your Majesty, how many of your people know how to fight something that cannot be killed with energy weapons?" Zixandra stared at him in shock. What are you?" Marcus's expression softened slightly, and she caught a glimpse of the gentle man she thought she had married. "I am your husband," he said simply. "But I am also something else. Something Earth created to protect the people we care about." The sounds of battle grew closer as more Devourers broke into the palace. Marcus turned toward the noise, and once again his entire demeanor changed. The diplomat disappeared, replaced by something that looked very much like a weapon. "Your Majesty," he said, "would you like me to show you how humans really fight?" The palace shook as more Devourers smashed through the walls. Zixandra could hear them getting closer, their hungry roars echoing through the corridors. But she could not stop staring at Marcus. The gentleman who had spent months reading poetry and tending gardens had just killed a creature that her best warriors could not even wound. He had done it with his bare hands, moving faster than seemed possible for any living thing. How? She whispered. Marcus looked at her with something like sadness in his eyes. Earth received the first reports about creatures like these 40 years ago, from a colony ship that barely escaped when their destination world was consumed. We knew that someday we would meet them again. But you said your people had no special powers. We do not. But we have something else. We adapt. Another Devourer burst through the ceiling above them, dropping into the corridor with a thunderous crash. This one was larger than the first, with additional arms and thicker armor. It looked around the room and focused immediately on Zixandra. Marcus stepped between them without hesitation. "Your Majesty," he said calmly, not taking his eyes off the creature, "what I am about to tell you may be difficult to accept. Earth has many colonies, and each one has people like me. We are called the Martial Caste." The Devourer charged. Marcus met it head-on, moving with that impossible speed again. But this time, Zixandra was watching more carefully. She began to understand what she was seeing. Marcus was not just fast. He was perfectly efficient. Every movement served a purpose. When the creature attacked with its claws, Marcus was never where they expected him to be. When he struck back, his attacks targeted exactly the right spots to cause maximum damage. "We are not born this way," Marcus continued, his voice calm even as he fought for his life. He grabbed one of the creature's arms and used its own momentum to throw it into the wall. "We are made this way." "Made how?" Zixandra asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. Marcus ducked under a swipe that would have removed his head. "Surgery, training, genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement. Whatever it takes to make us strong enough to protect our people." He struck the creature in what looked like a vital spot. It stumbled, black blood flowing from the wound. But it did not fall. "The scientists said it was impossible," Marcus said, breathing a little harder now. "They said humans could never match species like yours for strength or speed. So we decided to prove them wrong." The devourer recovered and attacked again, this time with all 6 arms working together. Marcus flowed around the attacks like he was dancing, each movement bringing him closer to his target. "But the physical modifications were just the beginning," he said. "The real change was in here." He tapped his temple briefly before returning to the fight. "We learned to think like predators, to see patterns, to read our enemies." Zixandra watched as Marcus studied the creature's movements. She could almost see him learning, adapting his strategy with each exchange. The devourer was strong and fast, but it fought with instinct. Marcus fought with intelligence. "You see, Your Majesty," Marcus said, as he finally found an opening and struck a killing blow. "Humans have one advantage that most species do not." The second devourer fell dead beside the first. Marcus stood over it, completely calm, despite having just fought 2 battles that should have been impossible to win. "What advantage?" Zixandra asked. Marcus smiled, and for a moment she saw the gentle man she had married. "We are very good at becoming whatever we need to become." More sounds of battle came from deeper in the palace. Marcus turned toward them, and once again his expression became focused and dangerous. "There will be more," he said. "Many more. Your people are brave, but they are not prepared for this kind of enemy. May I suggest a different approach?" "What do you mean?" "Let me teach you guards how to fight these things. Humans have developed techniques specifically for creatures like this. Your people can learn them." Zixandra stared at him. "You want to turn my guards into weapons like you?" "No, Your Majesty. I want to teach them to think like humans." They moved through the palace, gathering the surviving guards and staff. Marcus took command so naturally that no one questioned it. He assessed each group's strengths and weaknesses in seconds, then gave them specific instructions. "Forget your energy weapons," he told a squad of royal guards. "They are useless here. Use physical force. These creatures have armor, but they also have joints. Target the joints." To another group, he said, "Do not fight them one-on-one. Use teamwork. Coordinate your attacks. Make them fight multiple opponents at once." Zixandra watched in amazement as her people began to adapt Marcus's tactics. The guards who had been struggling against single devourers suddenly started winning battles against groups of them. "How do you know so much about fighting these creatures?" she asked as they moved through the palace. "Because Earth has been hunting them for decades," Marcus replied. "Every time they attacked one of our colonies, we learned something new. We studied their biology, their behavior, their weaknesses. We prepared. Why did you not tell us this when you arrived?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because your people were not ready to hear it. You saw humans as weak and primitive. If we had told you we were warriors, you would have seen us as a threat to be eliminated. So you pretended to be harmless. We are only dangerous to our enemies, Your Majesty. To our friends, we are exactly what we appear to be. They reached the main courtyard, where the largest group of defenders had gathered. Admiral Dexter was there, coordinating the battle from his mobile command center. He looked up in surprise when he saw Marcus. "Your Majesty, what is the human doing here? This is no place for civilians." "Admiral," Zixandra said, "I would like you to meet my husband. He has some experience with our enemies." Marcus stepped forward. "Admiral, how many Devourers are we facing?" "Several thousand at least. They just keep coming. Our weapons are barely effective, and they are overwhelming our positions through sheer numbers." "Have you tried physical attacks? Projectile weapons? Explosive charges?" The Admiral looked confused. "Those are primitive weapons. We stopped using them centuries ago." "Sometimes primitive weapons are exactly what you need," Marcus said. "These creatures evolved to resist energy-based attacks, but they are still vulnerable to kinetic force." Marcus picked up a piece of broken crystal from the ground. With a quick motion, he threw it at a nearby wall. The crystal struck with enough force to embed itself deep in the stone. "You see? Not all weapons need to be sophisticated to be effective." Admiral Dexter stared at the embedded crystal. "How did you throw it so hard?" "Training," Marcus said simply. "Admiral, with your permission, I would like to reorganize your defenses. I believe we can not only stop these creatures, but drive them away entirely. You want to take command of my forces?" Marcus shook his head. "I want to teach them to fight like humans. There is a difference." Zixandra watched as Marcus began transforming her military. He did not replace their tactics, he improved them. He showed them how to use their existing weapons more effectively. He taught them to fight as teams instead of individuals. Most importantly, he taught them to think like hunters instead of prey. "The key to fighting Devourers," he explained to a group of officers, "is to remember that they are not intelligent opponents. They are biological weapons. They follow patterns. Learn the patterns, and you can predict their moves." "How do you know so much about their patterns?" one officer asked. Marcus's expression grew distant. "Because I have killed hundreds of them." The admission hung in the air like a challenge. Here was this small, quiet human who looked like a diplomat. But he spoke of killing hundreds of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy like it was a normal part of his life. "What are you?" Admiral Dexter asked quietly. Marcus looked around at all the faces watching him. Valthari soldiers, palace guards, civilian staff. They were all waiting for an answer. "I am what humanity becomes," he said finally, "when someone threatens the people we protect." As if summoned by his words, the largest group of Devourers yet came pouring into the courtyard. There were at least 50 of them, their claws and teeth gleaming in the sunlight. Marcus stepped forward to meet them, and Zixandra finally understood what she was seeing. Her husband was not just a warrior. He was war itself, refined and perfected into human form. He was what her people would become if they ever decided to stop being civilized. And despite the horror of it, she found herself grateful that he was on their side. The battle for the palace courtyard lasted 3 hours. When it was over, 50 dead Devourers lay scattered across the crystal stones. And not a single Valthari had been killed. Zixandra stood among her surviving warriors, watching them look at Marcus with a mixture of awe and fear. He had not just fought alongside them. He had taught them to fight like humans. And in doing so, he had shown them something about warfare that their advanced civilization had forgotten. Sometimes the most sophisticated weapon was a warrior who refused to give up. The immediate threat is contained, Admiral Dexter reported. Our forces across the city are using the humans' tactics with great success. The Devourers are retreating to their ships. They will not leave, Marcus said quietly. He was cleaning black blood from his hands with a piece of torn cloth. Devourers do not retreat. They are regrouping for another attack. How can you be certain? Because that is what they do. They probe defenses, learn patterns, then attack in overwhelming force. What we face today was just the beginning. As if to prove his point, the sky began to darken with new ships. Hundreds of them, larger than the first wave. These vessels looked even more organic, like massive flying creatures with wings that blocked out the sun. "By the stars," Admiral Dexter whispered. "How many of them are there?" "Enough to consume your entire world," Marcus replied. "Unless we do something they do not expect." "What do you mean?" Marcus looked up at the approaching fleet, then turned to face the assembled Valthari. "Your Majesty, I need to ask you something. Do you trust me? After what I have seen today?" "Yes." "Then I need you to order your fleet to stand down." Every Valthari in the courtyard stared at him in shock. "Stand down?" Admiral Dexter sputtered. "In the face of invasion?" "Not stand down to surrender," Marcus clarified. "Stand down to let my people take over." "Your people?" "But Earth has no ships here." Marcus smiled. For the first time since the battle began, it was the gentle smile she remembered from their quiet evenings in the garden. "Admiral, did you really think Earth would send someone like me to an alien world without backup?" He activated a communication device that Zixandra had never seen before. It was small and sleek, clearly human technology. "This is Lion to Pride," he said into the device. "The cubs are in danger. Request immediate assistance." The response came immediately, in a language that sounded like Earth Standard. Marcus listened, then nodded. "Roger that. Lion out." He looked up at the confused faces around him. "Help is on the way." "From where?" Zixandra asked. "From where it has been for the past 6 months, waiting." High above them, space began to shimmer. One by one, human ships became visible as their stealth systems deactivated. Not just a few ships, an entire fleet. They had been there all along, invisible and silent, watching over Marcus like guardian angels. But these were not the small, primitive vessels that Earth had shown to the rest of the galaxy. These ships were sleek and deadly, built for one purpose: war. They moved through space with predatory grace, taking positions around the Devourer fleet. "How long have they been there?" Admiral Dexter asked in a stunned voice. "Since before I arrived," Marcus replied. "Earth does not send its people into danger without protection." The human fleet began their attack, and Zixandra watched in fascination as they demonstrated tactics she had never seen before. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they moved like a pack of hunters, coordinating their attacks to isolate and destroy individual Devourer ships. "Your people fight like you do," she observed. "All humans fight like this when we have to," Marcus said. "We study our enemies. We adapt. We work together. And we never, ever give up." The tide of battle turned quickly. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just minutes before, found itself outmaneuvered and overwhelmed. The creatures were used to facing opponents who fought with honor and individual courage. They did not know how to respond to enemies who fought with intelligence and perfect coordination. Within an hour, the surviving Devourer ships were fleeing toward hyperspace. The human fleet pursued them just long enough to ensure they were truly gone, then returned to orbit around the Valthari homeworld. "It is over?" Admiral Dexter asked. "For now," Marcus confirmed. "The Devourers will not return to this system. They have learned that it is defended by humans. Defended by allies," Marcus corrected gently. Zixandra studied her husband's face. The warrior she had seen during the battle was gone, replaced once again by the thoughtful man she had married. But now she understood that both aspects were equally real. "Marcus," she said, "I need to ask you something." "Of course." "When you came here, was any of it real? Your interest in our culture, our conversations, the way you seem to care about our people?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was soft and serious. Your Majesty, everything you saw was real. I am a warrior when I need to be, but that is not all I am. I genuinely love your poetry. I genuinely find your philosophy fascinating. And I genuinely care about you and your people. But you were also watching, learning, preparing for war. Yes, because that is what protectors do. We hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst. And if the worst had been my people? If we had proven to be a threat to Earth? Marcus met her gaze directly. Then you would have seen a very different side of humanity. But you are not our enemies. You are our friends. That was clear from the first day I arrived. Admiral Dexter stepped forward. Human Marcus, I must ask, how many ships does Earth actually have? Enough, Marcus replied. We have been building for 40 years, ever since we first learned about the Devourers. Every human colony contributes to the fleet. Every human world trains protectors like me. But your people told us you were peaceful traders. We are peaceful traders. We prefer to solve problems with words and cooperation. But when someone threatens innocent people, Marcus gestured to the battlefield around them, we become something else. Zixandra thought about everything she had witnessed. The strength you showed today, is this what all humans are capable of? With training and determination? Yes, but true strength is not just about fighting, Your Majesty. True strength is about knowing when to fight and when not to. It is about protecting others, even when they cannot protect themselves. Is that why you married me? To protect my people. Marcus smiled. I married you because Earth needed an alliance with the Velthari Empire. But I stayed married to you because I discovered I could love someone from another world just as much as someone from my own. The admission surprised her. You love me? Did you think I was just pretending when I brought you flowers? When I listened to your stories about your childhood? When I held you during the storms last month? Zixandra thought back to all those quiet moments. She had assumed they were part of his cover, a diplomatic act to maintain their alliance. But looking into his eyes now, she saw the truth. You really meant it all. Every word, every gesture, every moment. But you also lied to me about what you were. Marcus nodded. I did, and I am sorry for that. But I could not tell you the truth until I knew you could handle it. And now? Now you have seen what humans really are when we are pushed to our limits. And you are still here, still talking to me. That tells me everything I need to know. In the days that followed, representatives from Earth arrived to begin formal negotiations. They came not as conquerors, but as partners. They shared their technology for fighting the Devourers. They offered to train Velthari forces in human tactics. They proposed joint controls to protect both empires from future threats. But most importantly, they kept their word about friendship. Zixandra watched the negotiations with growing amazement. These were the same humans who had just demonstrated they could destroy her empire if they chose to. But instead of making demands, they asked how they could help. Instead of claiming territory, they offered protection. Your people are strange, she told Marcus as they walked through the palace gardens one evening. How so? You have the power to rule the galaxy, but you choose to serve it instead. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. Your Majesty, Zixandra, may I tell you something about human philosophy? She nodded. We believe that true strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you choose to protect. Any species can learn to kill. Only a few learn to truly care for others. And humans have learned to care? We are still learning. But yes, I think we have. Zixandra thought about everything that had happened. The attack, the revelation, the battle, the rescue. Her quiet husband had turned out to be one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But he had also proven to be exactly what she had thought he was, a protector. Marcus, she said, I have one more question. Yes? When this crisis is over, when the treaties are signed and the fleets have gone home, will you stay? Marcus smiled and took her hand. Your Majesty, I told you once that I came here to build a bridge between our peoples. That bridge is not complete yet, and when it is, then I will have to decide whether I am more human or more Velthari. Zixandra squeezed his hand. And what do you think you will choose? Marcus looked around the garden where they had spent so many peaceful evenings, then back at her face. I think, he said quietly, that love might be the strongest force in the universe after all.